I never thought a single day could erase everything I'd worked for. One morning, I woke up to silence in a house that used to echo with laughter. The smell of coffee didn't feel like comfort anymore. It felt like a memory I could never touch again. My marriage, my life, had crumbled while I slept. Divorce papers on the kitchen counter, the sound of her heels clicking down the hall as she left for the last time. It all hit me at once. I had lost everything. The home, the security, the future I thought we were building together. And I was left staring at a life that suddenly felt empty and unrecognizable. I spent days walking through the rooms, each one a monument to what I'd lost. The photographs on the wall, smiling faces frozen in happier times, now seemed like taunts. Friends tried to call, offering support, but every word felt hollow. The world outside kept moving, but I was stuck, replaying the same questions in my mind. How did this happen? Was it me? Could I have done something to prevent it? Then came the unexpected part, the part one wasn't ready for. Her sister, the one I barely knew beyond polite hellos at family gatherings, suddenly appeared at my doorstep. I wasn't sure if I should feel anger, embarrassment, or something else entirely. She was different now. Older, sharper, more self-assured. But there was something familiar in her eyes, something that reminded me of the woman I used to love. She didn't knock. She just appeared, holding an envelope and a key. "You're going to need this," she said, her voice calm but carrying a weight I couldn't ignore. My first instinct was to refuse, to slam the door and retreat into my solitude. But curiosity, something I hadn't felt in weeks, got the better of me. Inside that envelope was a note. Short, simple, yet every word felt like it was reaching into a part of me I thought had died with my marriage. She didn't explain everything, just hinted that I had a choice to make. A choice that could change everything I thought I'd lost. And the key? It wasn't just a key to a house or a room. It was something else. Something that might unlock more than just doors. I didn't know if I should trust her. I didn't know if I was ready to move on, or if moving on was even possible. But there it was, sitting in my hand. An invitation, a warning, and a promise all at once. And as I stared at it, a shiver ran down my spine because I had no idea what I was stepping into. Little did I know, that single moment, the moment she handed me that key, was about to pull me into a story I never saw coming. A story about heartbreak, temptation, and the kind of connection you only hear about in movies or nightmares. And it all started with her, the sister I never expected to see in a different light. I turned the key over in my hand, hesitating, knowing that once I used it, nothing would ever be the same again. Before all of this fell apart, my life had felt predictable, comfortable even. I had a wife I loved, or at least I thought I did. A home filled with memories and a routine that, while sometimes boring, felt safe. Her family, too, was part of that world. Her sister, Emily, was always there in the background at holidays and birthdays. I never really noticed her much. She was quieter, polite, always smiling politely at my jokes, but she had this quiet intensity about her. The kind of intensity you only notice when you stop to really look. My wife and I, though, had drifted long before the divorce papers hit the counter. Small arguments, silent dinners, late nights spent scrolling on our phones instead of talking. I told myself it was just the stress of work, the pressures of life. I blamed myself, of course. It's easier that way. But looking back now, I realized there were signs everywhere. Tiny cracks I ignored because I didn't want to face the truth. Emily had always been there, quietly observing. I remember one evening, months before it ended, she sat on the couch across from me while my wife stormed out of the room after yet another fight. Emily didn't say anything. She just handed me a glass of water and gave me this look, like she understood more than I did. At the time, I chalked it up to sisterly concern. I didn't think twice about it. After the divorce, I became invisible to the world. I stopped returning calls. I avoided the places we used to go. I slept on the couch because the bedroom, our bedroom, was a shrine to everything I lost. Every object, every photo, every little note from years ago was a reminder I couldn't bear. That's when Emily showed up. And suddenly, the person I'd barely noticed before became the center of a new, terrifying kind of attention in my life. She didn't just bring a key and a note. She brought questions I wasn't ready to answer. Why was she here? Why now? Did she even realize what she was doing to me? What she was awakening? And somehow, In the way she looked at me, I sensed that she was offering something forbidden, dangerous, and yet magnetic. There was a pull I couldn't explain, a curiosity I couldn't resist. It wasn't just about the key or the promise hidden in her words. It was about understanding her. Understanding her in a way I had never bothered to try before. And somewhere deep down, I knew that once I started down that path, there would be no turning back. I glanced at her standing in the doorway, the envelope still in my hand, and realized something terrifying. I didn't know if I wanted to turn away. But I also didn't know if stepping forward meant opening a door I might never close again. And in that hesitation, the air between us thickened, the kind of silence that speaks louder than words. A silence that made my heart pound and my mind spin with questions I wasn't ready to answer. Because one thing was already certain. This wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about what could happen next, and I had no idea how far it would go. The days after Emily handed me that key were confusing. Every time I thought I could push her out of my mind, she appeared again in some way. Sometimes in person, sometimes in my thoughts, haunting the quiet spaces I'd claimed for myself. It wasn't just that she had shaken up my routine. It was the way she made me feel things I hadn't felt in months, or maybe years. I found myself imagining scenarios I knew were dangerous to think about. What did it mean that I was drawn to her? Was it guilt, curiosity, loneliness, or something else entirely? I tried to rationalize it, tried to tell myself it was impossible, that it was wrong. Yet every time she smiled that half-knowing smile, every time her eyes lingered a little too long, a part of me betrayed my own rules. Then there were the key and the note. I still hadn't used the key, but just holding it made my heart race. The note's words were vague but irresistible. The door is yours. Choose carefully. I didn't know if it was an invitation or a test, or something far more complicated. One evening, unable to resist the tension any longer, I found myself standing in front of the door the key belonged to. My hand hovered over the lock, and I realized I didn't even know what I was hoping for. Escape? Connection? Revenge? Something else? I could feel my pulse in my throat as I debated turning away. But turning away felt impossible. And then Emily appeared again, as if she had known I'd be here. She didn't speak at first, just leaned casually against the wall, watching me with that same calm intensity that made me feel both safe and exposed at the same time. "You're thinking about using it," she said softly. Her voice was calm, almost teasing, but there was a seriousness underneath that made me freeze. How did she know? How much did she understand about what I was feeling? And more importantly, how much did I understand myself? I swallowed hard, staring at the door, the key heavy in my hand. Every instinct screamed to run. Every curiosity screamed to turn it. And in that frozen moment, I realized something terrifying. The door wasn't just a door. It was the start of something I had no idea how to control. And as Emily stepped closer, her presence brushing against the space around me, I knew that once I turned that key, nothing would ever be the same. I finally turned the key. The lock clicked, and a door that had been nothing more than a mysterious object in my hand became a threshold I was crossing. The room inside smelled faintly of lavender and old books, comforting, yet strange. It wasn't her house, it wasn't mine. And yet, it felt like stepping into a world I was somehow meant to see. Emily followed silently, as if she had rehearsed this moment 100 times. She didn't push or guide me. She just let me walk in first, letting me discover every detail on my own. A desk covered in papers, a small lamp casting warm light on the walls, photographs carefully arranged, pictures of her, not just casually taken, but moments she had captured for herself. And in each one, I could see pieces of her personality I had never noticed, her loneliness, her humor, her little acts of kindness, the way she smiled when no one was watching. It hit me suddenly. This room, this key, all of it wasn't just a game. It was a window into her life, into who she really was. And the thought was both thrilling and terrifying, because I realized that if I crossed this line completely, I would see everything, every hidden side of her, every truth she had kept from the world, and perhaps from herself. I tried to stay rational, tried to remind myself I was only a visitor. But Emily's presence made that impossible. She was close now, just across the room, the light catching the curve of her cheek and the glint in her eyes. And I couldn't ignore the subtle tension between us, the unspoken pull that had been building since she first handed me that key. Then she spoke, her voice low, almost a whisper. "You're not supposed to know this, not yet." I froze. My heart pounded. My mind raced through possibilities, none of them comforting. Not supposed to know what? I wanted to ask, to press her for answers, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I just stared at her, feeling the weight of every second stretch longer than it should. And that's when I noticed it, a photograph on the desk, one I hadn't seen at first. It wasn't just a casual snapshot. It was a picture of my wife, smiling in a way that seemed both familiar and alien, standing next to Emily. Something about the photo made my stomach twist. It was innocent, but it wasn't. There was a story here, one I wasn't ready to hear, but one I couldn't stop myself from piecing together. Emily stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "You're closer than you think," she said, her voice soft but laced with warning. I took a step back, my hand brushing the edge of the desk. The air was thick, charged, and I realized with a jolt. Whatever I was about to discover would change everything I thought I knew about my past, my marriage, and about her. And just as I leaned forward to look closer at the photograph, the room seemed to hold its breath, and I knew the truth was about to hit me, but I wasn't ready for how deep it would cut. I blinked, staring at the photograph, trying to piece together what I was seeing. My wife, smiling next to Emily, but something was off. And then I noticed it, the date on the back. Weeks before my marriage even started, Emily had been there, in moments I didn't know existed. "Wait," I whispered, my voice shaking. Why is she in this?" Emily's expression softened, but there was a glint in her eyes that made my chest tighten. "You really had no idea, did you?" she said quietly. "There's more you need to understand, but it's not just about the past." She reached for the envelope again, pulling out another slip of paper. My hand shook as I took it. It wasn't a note. It was a photograph, but this one was different. One I couldn't have imagined. My wife and Emily together. Close. Too close. The room spun, and my mind raced. Had I been blind all along? Had Emily's quiet attention always been a shadow of something far bigger than I realized? And then she said the words that froze me completely. "Everything you think you know about them, about us, it's about to change. Forever." My hands trembled as I held the photograph, the weight of what I was seeing pressing down on me like a physical force. Emily stood silently, watching, her eyes calm but piercing. I wanted to yell, to demand answers, but my voice had vanished. "You need to understand," she said softly, stepping closer. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way, but it did." My mind spun. How could she be telling the truth? How could the sister of the woman who had shattered my life now be standing here, guiding me into something I didn't fully understand, but couldn't resist? "I loved her," Emily continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "but she chose him. She made her choice. And I was always in the background, watching, waiting, hoping someone would notice me." Her words hit me like a lightning strike. This wasn't just a story about betrayal. It was about longing, heartbreak, and secrets that had been buried far too long. Every glance, every gesture I'd misread suddenly made sense. And then, the final revelation, the one I never saw coming. Emily leaned forward, her hand brushing mine over the key. "This isn't just about them," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. "It's about you, too. You've been lost, broken, but you have a choice. You can let the past define you, or you can step through this door with me. But once you do, there's no turning back." I froze. The tension was unbearable, a knife-edge moment where everything hung in the balance. My heart raced, torn between loyalty to what was lost and curiosity about what could be gained. And just as I opened my mouth to respond, the unexpected happened. From behind Emily, a sound, a whisper, a laugh, echoed through the room. I spun around, my blood running cold. There, in the doorway I hadn't even noticed before, stood my ex-wife. She wasn't angry. She wasn't sad. She was smiling, but that smile, it didn't feel like mine anymore. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed, was collapsing in real time. The lines between love, betrayal, and desire had blurred completely. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Nothing in this room, nothing in this life, would ever be the same again. The room was heavy with silence. My ex-wife's unexpected presence lingered like a shadow, and Emily stood beside me, calm but expectant. I realized then that the story wasn't just about betrayal or heartbreak. It was about choices, about what we do when life breaks us and offers something new in return. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing thoughts. My past with my ex-wife was over. There was no reclaiming it, no rewriting the mistakes or the pain. But Emily, she had quietly waited, and now she was giving me a chance to step into something real, something I could shape with my own hands. I don't know what will happen, I said finally, my voice raw but steady. I don't know if I can trust myself or anyone. Emily smiled, that familiar, disarming smile that had drawn me in from the beginning. You don't have to know, she said softly. You just have to be willing to try. That's all anyone can ever ask of themselves. My ex-wife lingered for a moment longer, then nodded. There was no anger, no resentment, just a quiet acknowledgement that some things and so new things can begin. She left without another word, and the room felt lighter, yet charged with possibility. I turned to Emily, key still in hand. The door no longer felt like a mystery. It felt like an invitation, not just to a room, but to a new chapter in my life, one I could approach on my own terms. There would be mistakes, stumbles, and moments of fear, but there would also be connection, laughter, and the quiet joy of discovering someone who truly sees you. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of clarity. I realized that losing everything hadn't been the end. It had been a reset, a chance to strip away the superficial and confront what really mattered. And what mattered now was the human connection in front of me, the possibility of trust, and the courage to step forward despite the uncertainty. I handed Emily the key again, almost reflexively, and she shook her head, laughing softly. It's yours, she said. You've earned it. I slipped the key into my pocket, feeling its weight, not as a burden, but as a symbol, a reminder that life doesn't always follow the path we expect, but sometimes it leads us exactly where we need to be. As we stepped out of the room together, the air outside felt different, brighter, full of potential. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, and that the past would never fully disappear. But for the first time, I felt like I had a choice, and that choice was mine alone. Sometimes, losing everything is what makes you see what you truly need. And for me, it wasn't the life I thought I had. It was the heart I hadn't dared to notice until now.